And if you go to South Kirby now, you'll get some of the old miners when you say, Jimmy Savile's done well, hasn't he? Ah, and you'll look around and you'll say, he's not what you think you know. The forces of darkness are at work there.
As Jimmy Savile became one of Britain's most popular entertainers, host of the smash hit program Top of the Pops, as he forged a reputation as a tireless fundraiser, as he was knighted by the Queen and the Pope, he was, it now seems, leading an appalling double life, sexually abusing scores of young girls and some boys, some in hospitals, some in care homes, some in the very studios that made him a star.
Jimmy, you've never been married and you don't seem to have a very high regard of women. Oh. Do you feel that women are inferior to you, or are you frightened from them?
Don't you see an intellectual contradiction in your tabloid claim of having sex in a passion wagon and your profession to be a devout Roman Catholic?
Oh, you must put the camera on this man. This man is the only person I know in the world who believes newspapers. Who's your best pal? Tell me.
I'm not telling you. No, Desmond.
He's not.
He is.
No, he's not.
Get off me.
Because he's a married man.
Do you care?
Yes, you do.
Get off.
I won't. Not until,
You're squashing.
not until you say me.
Me.
Say, I promise
I promise.
that you, Jimmy Savile,
You, Jimmy Savile,
are the only one
are the only one.
in my life,
No, you're not the only one in my life.
and Noel Edmonds and all them others is definitely not. Ooh, girl, who's your best pal?
You as a pal, get off my backside.
Hey? I beg your pardon. In front of your mummy and daddy? Goodness gracious.
began this article saying, "I do not support the persecution of old men." So you wouldn't have gone after Jimmy Savile if he was still alive?
Well, it depends what he's alleged to have done.
Well, we know what he's alleged to have done. It's a variety of sexual crimes. I mean,
including satanic ritual abuse.
You find it funny?
I do.
Which bit?
Satanic ritual abuse doesn't exist. It's like alien abduction.
So are you saying that the people who've made these allegations are just making it up?
I would think so.
Everything?
The satanic
we're
ritual
talking about
abuse
hundreds of people here who've made sexual allegations
They've made
against Jimmy Savile.
allegations, but that's not evidence.
Do you think you're going to make a film?
Huh?
Would you like to make a film?
Yes. In it, I'd like to kill a lot of people.
How many people?
Oh, about 200. Well, they'd all be famous names. I'd love to kill Mick Jagger on film, but I bet he'd never do it. His ego would be deflated or something absurd.
Might be good for his public image.
Yeah.
So who else is on the list then? On the goner list?
Oh, it's endless, believe me. It's easier to list the people I don't want to kill.
A serious thing.
All 5 of them.
So how you so how are you going to go about this massacre?
I don't know. I just want to make a film of it. On film, I'd like to kill Jimmy Savile. I think he's a hypocrite. I bet he's into all kinds of seediness that we all know about but are not allowed to talk about. I know some rumours.
Yeah, people always tell you things, don't they?
Ain't I a bitch, eh, don't you think?
On occasion.
I bet none of this will be allowed out.
I shouldn't imagine libelous stuff will be like that.
Nothing I said is liable.
God, you're really well trained. I mean, I'm interested in the way you've... Because when you started out, right, in making music, you were very naive because you'd never thought about what it would entail and what it could lead to in terms of lawsuits, etc. So you've really learnt the hard way.
Oh yeah, I've seen how supposed anarchists like turned into bourgeoisie. I mean, oh yes, Bond Street shops.
Yeah, well, I know what you're
like
referring
that.
to. You're referring to the fact that the McLarens have opened a new shop in Bond Street, right?
Yes, I find that really strange.
Put aside the rhetoric you were using, the fact that in 1978, at the height of the Sex Pistols explosion, there you are saying about Jimmy Savile, he was into all kinds of seediness that we all knew about. We weren't allowed to talk about it. I know some rumours. So you had heard the kind of thing that we now know about him, or stuff like that?
Yeah. I think most kids did too. Most kids wanted to go to the top of the pops, but we all knew what that cigar muncher was up to. But I'm very, very bitter that the likes of Savile and the rest of them were allowed to continue.
Did you ever try and do anything about Savile?
I did my bit. I said what I had to.
Did they air that? No. It just got suppressed for legal reasons.
Yeah. And
did you meet?
I found myself being banned from BBC Radio there for quite a while for my contentious behaviour.
Because of that?
But they wouldn't state this directly. There'd be other excuses.
I mean, it's shocking.
Oh, yeah.
He got away with it for another 30-odd years.
Well, not only him, a whole bunch of them. And these are the purveyors of good taste, huh?
You were too offensive.
Brilliant, innit? Well, I'm still here, and the rest of them, what are still alive, nice bit of jail time for them.
This is being built up by the right-wing press as if it only involves the BBC. It also involves the right-wing press. Why, 10 years ago, did a reporter from the Scottish Sun go around a wedding boasting that everybody at the Sun knew about the Savile necrophilia story? Was it because they did have a necrophilia story, or was it because people from the Sun just go around calling living celebrities necrophiliacs? There's a question to answer there. Why did the News of the World and the Sunday People, which knew about this decades ago, not act? And who vetted the knighthood? Coco the Clown? This is 1990.
That particularly lurid accusation that you've just brought to many people's attention is one that it's not been in the public domain.
I know that. Why not, News International? You have a case to answer. You see, the entire society was gulled by this man, including the Prime Minister who invited him to Chequers, including the royal family photographed with him. He got a knighthood in this country. He got a papal knighthood. This is not just the BBC. This is history. This is a man who conned an entire society, top to bottom, partly because in that era, that type of behavior was off the scale of human conception.
I can't think of any media celebrity today who is more famous than he was then. He was a demigod.
The facts that he was given keys to a place such as Broadmoor, that he was allowed to walk the hospital wards where there were vulnerable children in Stoke Mandeville and other places, again, is incomprehensible, and yet nobody seems to be taking responsibility.
We now know there were people, in certain hospitals and at Broadmoor and elsewhere who were suspicious, or indeed had had whispers, or even had complaints from some victims, but who I think felt that they would never be believed.
If you're a friend of the Prime Minister, you're photographed with these people, you are, in the public eye. The idea that you might at the same time be abusing children is monstrous.
Here we go with what's called a medical breakthrough.
Crowley was a famous and highly controversial British occultist in the early part of the 20th century. His sexual exploits in bizarre and sometimes deadly satanic rituals had been exposed in the London newspapers.
He also talked about taking a virgin and having sexual relations with her, and then upon a climax to actually murder her, cut her in 6 pieces, and put the names of the various demon gods on those 6 limbs, those 6 parts of her body.
Taking the name for the Antichrist in the Bible, Crowley called himself the Beast 666. His famous saying was, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," by which he justified all forms of immorality.
Crowley had a sex temple and had practiced group sex and orgies and what have you, and so-called sex magic. Crowley was into pedophilia. He was into justifying his pedophilia. In fact, he had said, "Let me seduce the boys of England." He wanted to seduce them, and then he starts talking about sodomy and it should be acceptable. So, it was quite shocking, especially back then.
What Kinsey discovered at Crowley's mysterious abbey might provide a clue. Pomeroy writes that Crowley's curious magnetism drew people from all over the world who came and became his sexual slaves. Some of these women left their husbands to enter the temple. They held group orgies as part of their ritual and included in them the small children the women had brought. He further reveals that inside the abbey, Kinsey found paintings, life-sized representations of sexual activity, including children.
flags at half-mast outside Leeds General Infirmary, where he'd raised so much for charity.
On the 9th of November 2011, a funeral cortege moved slowly through the city of Leeds. The streets lined by a respectful public. They weren't there to say goodbye to royalty or a head of state, however. They'd come to pay their respects to a DJ, charity worker, and much-loved icon.
They was absolutely worshipped by thousands and thousands of people. You couldn't move in Leeds when it was a funeral. The seats were packed solid, you know, traffic was stopped, everything stopped.
But to this afternoon, Sir Jimmy Savile's gold coffin made its way down Cookridge Street in Leeds.
Jill Dando, known and loved by millions, has been brutally murdered. The 37-year-old presenter died in hospital after being found shot through the head on her own doorstep. Tonight in West London, a massive police hunt for the well-dressed man seen running away down the street in which she lived.
He had friends in the very highest echelons of society. Princess Diana and him were friends. Nobody messed with Jimmy Savile because he had connections that were unique, if you like, to somebody in his position. It was like he was the puppet master controlling everything that was going on.